So let's think about why a video game may be more successful on Steam than trying to sell it on your own website. Well, the people that buy video games are established and familiar with Steam. They trust the brand, they're familiar with the process. And if you're trying to get somebody to download an exe file or something that could be malicious, are you more likely to do that through a channel that you trust or a channel you don't trust? Well, of course, you're going to do it through a trusted channel. There are other key benefits too, like the fact that people are actually going to Steam actively looking for video games. They're browsing, they're looking for things to buy, and they don't necessarily know that your brand exists. They don't know that your video game exists, but they might stumble across it. If you're in the right category, if you're promoting yourself actively on there, you're going to get a receptive audience. Now, when I worked at PlayStation, we had multi-million-dollar television campaigns that are designed to create awareness for new video game brands. And with that kind of budget and with the trust of PlayStation tagged onto those games, I was able to be quite successful with generating sales. But you don't have that kind of budget as a startup. You can't do a massive awareness campaign. So your tactics with regard to marketing are going to be fundamentally different. It's going to be more about gaining visibility within marketplaces like Steam. So another thing that we notice is that with these smaller indie games, often what they do is they provide something that large video games used to do, which was the demos. You have a demo experience to try out the product. And with that kind of long tail, when we're dealing with these indie games that have small markets, you're going to see a lot more of those demo experiences. So being successful as a startup in the video game space looks very different than it does when you're launching a potential blockbuster through a large company like PlayStation or Xbox, whatever. Another example is Amazon. So I've mentioned elsewhere in this course that I've done tons of research, quantitative research, looking at successful e-commerce sellers, and some of the most successful ones that get to that mid-size are selling on Amazon. It's a receptive audience, a paying customer. So if you're focused on Amazon, it's very hard to get distracted. You're not going to get distracted by marketing that's fun and creative. You're going to focus on marketing that actually generates sales. And it also forces you to think in terms of competitive context. You can't be successful on Amazon if you don't have something that has superior value or vastly superior marketing, because it's a competitive place. So it forces you to hone and focus on where you're actually able to generate a profit. And one of the things that startups frequently do, founders, when they pitch venture capitalists, is they underestimate the competition. They devalue the competition. They don't realize how strong the competition is. But when you're in a competitive marketplace, you're forced to do that, and you're forced to make changes quickly because you recognize the power of competition. Another example is selling an app through the Clover app marketplace. So if you have some sort of point of sale integration and a lot of your customers are using something like Clover, you should be on their app marketplace. Often when you're selling software, there's usually one piece of software that is kind of the key software that your customers use. It's their CRM or their accounting system or your point of sale or their practice management system. So if that fits you, if you're in the software space, then you want to latch on to that main piece of software that owns the customer relationship. And sometimes it's the POS. If you're selling something creative like necklaces or crafts, go on Etsy. If you're trying to acquire users and traffic from the get-go, from ground zero, it's going to be very expensive. It's going to be very time consuming. You don't want to have to do that. If you go to Etsy, Etsy has already invested a lot of time, a lot of money, building an audience of recurring traffic of people that are interested in the kinds of things that you'd sell. They're interested in beads, they're interested in jewels, they're interested in handcrafted things. Why build that audience yourself? Just tap into the existing audience that Etsy has already built for you. Yes, it's competitive. Yes, you're going to be up against other artisans, but who cares? That's where the money is. You got to go where the money is, even if there's competition. Apps.com is one of QuickBooks marketplaces. They also have a desktop marketplace as well. You can put listings on both. This is a place you can go if your users are using QuickBooks and you sell a QuickBooks integration. There's no need to go necessarily and build a massive audience of QuickBooks users. They're already captive looking for apps to install. You can do that on apps.com. Udemy. You sell courses, you create interesting educational content, just go to Udemy. That's where the people are that want to consume and pay for that kind of content. AliExpress. People looking for interesting items from China, perhaps they can't find it on Amazon, they can't find it on eBay, go on AliExpress. People are going to trust it. They're going to be willing to add their credit card information there because they're familiar with AliExpress. You don't have to build that trust yourself. You want to gain access to Fortune 500 companies that are using Salesforce. Go on the Salesforce App Exchange. I heard of this one company a few years ago, built a multi-million-dollar business, and all they're doing is tapping into the Salesforce ecosystem. They're just a little, I don't want to say a leech, but they're just a small player in the Salesforce world that's able to build a very successful startup around that ecosystem. You don't need to be the next Salesforce. You can just be a little tack on to that ecosystem, and that can be a very viable business for you as a startup. A few other examples. If we look at international markets, you can join Tokopedia. So I've lived in Indonesia where people use Tokopedia. They also use Shopee. Lazada. I've never heard of this one, but maybe you have. eBay. Perhaps you're in the business of buying and selling used items or new items, and eBay is the kind of receptive audience that you want. Tap into that. Other examples are places like Airbnb, any sort of matchmaking service. You can try to build a brand for your rental units. You can try to build a brand for your own breakfast in bed. But why do that? Why bother? You can just go on the Airbnb listing. It's going to focus your marketing on what's able to generate sales. And that's going to be things like nice photos, nice listing descriptions, getting positive reviews, instead of getting distracted by this fun stuff like how do we build a brand, how do we do some creative marketing. Let's focus on what people are actually willing to pay for. And by going on a listing like Airbnb, that's going to compel you to do that.